Hello, listeners. Welcome back to yet another episode of the Digital Adoption Show Season 2. We hope that you are really having a gala time listening to all of these episodes jam packed with a lot of knowledge, fun, and organizational learning experiences. So, in today's episode, we would be discussing around the accidental instructional designer. Doesn't the topic sound so cool? I personally loved it. So, season 2, episode 5 features Nibu Thomas, who's the director information development at Whatfix, along with Lars Hecker, who's the group instructional design specialist at Mercell.
Welcome again to another edition of the Whatfix Digital Option Show. And today we have Lars Hecker from the Mercell Group. Lars, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Nibu, and thank you for having me on the show. I've been really looking forward to this day. It's great to be.
Let me allow you to introduce yourself. I think you would do a better job.
Yeah, I will do that. Well, the short version is that I'm hailing from Denmark. I am the Group Instructional Design Specialist here at Mercell Group, a software as a service company that aims to be the preferred e-tendering and procurement platform in Europe. And the fun thing is, I do not have a background in education at all, but I do have a master's degree in human-computer interaction, specialized in habits. And to be honest, I have quite a broad professional background. So I started my short-lived career as a sailor before making my way through business world in marketing, sales, public procurement, and contract management. And well, today I am Group Instructional Design Specialist.
Wow, you're a sailor.
Short-lived, let me say that, short-lived.
Yeah, so that's been quite a journey and a very interesting journey, if I might add. So this podcast is called the Accidental Instructional Design.
And then I tried to prep that topic a little bit.
Right. Like many of us, we fall into the careers that we do for a long time by accident. So how did this accident happen to you?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I want to give a shout out to Kemi Bean, who actually wrote the book on being an accidental instructional designer and who showed the community that many ideas actually do come from odd backgrounds. More true for me is maybe that I've become an ID accidentally on purpose. What does that mean? For quite many years, I had this gut feeling that education is absolutely underappreciated and that it has huge potential long term. Personally, I come from a family of teachers, librarians, kindergartners. I mean, what do you expect, right? So when I got hired as a consultant from Mercell in 2017, I actually it wasn't to become an instructional designer at all, but I had this gut feeling, so I had to do something about that, and yeah, so that's how the accident happened.
And for anyone who's listening to this podcast and doesn't know what an instructional designer does, could you give us a day in your life? What does it look like and what do you normally do?
Sure. I mean, unfortunately, instructional designer has become this bucket for anything and anyone working with some kind of training. And of course, a lot of this depends on the organization you work at, the size of your team and how mature their L&D journey is. But basically, for quite some time, I've been a one-man army. I'm no longer, but still I'm switching between being in the role as the training manager and the idea. So these past months, just to take a little bit out of my everyday life here at Mercell, our little team worked intensively on setting the strategic direction, developing our learning content strategy, aligning that strategy with our business goals, as well as implementing our tech stack, including Whatfix. And with whatever time that is left, we manage the execution and delivery of education services and creating training content. So that's what my life as an instructional designer looks like these days.
Great. That was so you're making it sound very interesting, but is there another side to ID? So for somebody who's trying to get into this field, what advice would you have for them?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of advices. So if I reflect back on the way I've broke into ID, I mean, I took chances. I surrounded myself with the right people that share my vision and that can help me to open the right doors. Also make sure to cut them in. I've been working with Mercell for almost 5 years now, and my career in L&D didn't really take off before I got my current manager. So I guess the point I'm trying to make here is that no man is an island. And to be honest, my manager, my co-workers, and even suppliers, they are all instrumental in my journey. The second advice I would give is be yourself. One of the thought leaders in customer education brands himself as a rebel entrepreneur. If that fits your personality, go for it, own it. I would brand myself as being a diplomat. I like to build rapport and alliances. I play the political game in the organization. It's that tat for tat, give a little, take a little game. And that suits my style and my personality. So in that sense, that would be my two advice to someone who wants to break into ID.
Great. Your story reminds me of one of my folks who joined Whatfix sometime last year. So I was looking to hire freshers and teach them something about information design. And I received a ton of applications. But this one guy, what he did was he did something more. Right? He went to our website, looked at our support content, and identified a few issues. And he said, this is how you can fix it too. Right? This is somebody he's a fresher, right? And look at their thought of how he's put his feet to open the door for him. How he's able to stand apart from those tons of resumes that you get.
Right.
So my next question is, what are some of the skill sets that you need to develop or have as you progress or join as an ID?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on the mission you're on and your professional background, where you're coming from. So kind of look into the direction where I'm going and where I'm coming from. Because I come from a background in human-computer interaction. So I already knew how people learn, the mechanics of habits and all that. But in my 9 to 5 at a SaaS company, it also helps tremendously to have a general understanding of the basics of UX, marketing, sales, communication on the one side, and definitely also tech development and agile process on the other side. I mean, you will develop strengths that are unique to you. And as your team grows, you can balance these strengths across the team. As an ID, as an educator, you must walk that talk. We cannot preach continuous learning if we don't have that mindset ourselves. A perfect example is when I took over the project with Whatfix, implementing that at Mercell. I've never written a single line of JavaScript. Now I have more than one even. So I mean, that's this continuous learning mindset that you need around this, depending where you're from and what your mission is. That's been my path.
Right. I would say the same thing for almost every other position, right? You need to have that mindset to want to learn, right? You have the willingness issue, and then you can, with that willingness, I think you can learn any kind of skill. So over the course of your career so far, and now at ID, what are some of the breakthroughs that you've seen that have kind of disrupted the way learning happens in organizations?
That's one of the most interesting topics, actually, for me at least, because I really like to drill down into the history of education, where it does come from, where it is now, and where it's going to. And I mean, because above all, we are still governed by the same principles of education, principles that go way back to the old Greek philosophers. For example, Plutarch said that the mind is not a vessel that needs filling, but wood that needs igniting. That's still true. So what we are supposed to do is to take these age-old governing principles and put them into the context of today's day and age. Not just on the tech side of things, but also on the social side of things. There's something like diversity, equity, and inclusion. I mean, as educators, we have more tools at our disposal than ever before. And that opens a whole range of new opportunities to deliver learning content. In a workplace context, we can now deliver training in the flow of work. If your go-to tool at work is a computer or a mobile device, we can use tools like Whatfix to deliver help on screen and in-app. If you're a mechanic or you're a doctor, we can use virtual or augmented reality to achieve something similar. Speaking of which, I mean, we have the tech to do advanced simulation today. Combining these governing principles with cutting-edge research on how we learn and with the broad range of tools that's accessible to us, boy, there's so many use cases that yet have to be explored. And I can see a lot of companies that are already doing this. Car companies who digital twins of their cars that you can explore every single bolt and screw and see where you can improve that and learn about the car in ways that you haven't been able to do before. So that's quite interesting for me.
Yeah, those exploded views of those drawings and all, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that you can take this virtual car and you can just keep on splitting it. Or if you're a surgeon, that you can actually go in and fail without the consequences. And the AI could determine that this cut is a lethal cut and all that kind of things. So there's huge opportunity in this field.
Great. Another approach that is commonly used in today's age is gamification.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on gamification of learning, and what are some alternatives? Because everybody doesn't want to play a game.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you, Nibu. Oh boy, this is how I'm becoming wildly unpopular with the community in the first podcast I'm participating in. Well, I mean, gamification. To be honest, gamification is a difficult topic. I know there's a big hype around it, and I also get why. If well done, it looks really, really cool. It's immersive, and to be honest, being in L&D, we are content creators at the end of the day. We are all competing for attention alongside marketers, game designers, and so on. So if we can wrap our content around the mechanics of casual gaming and then get the attention of our learners, well, that's okay, isn't it? But, and here comes the but, that being said, I'm an academic to the bone, and I want to see the research body that supports the hypothesis that gamification improves learning outcomes. And correct me if I'm wrong, and I really love to hear from the community actually, but from what I can gather, there's no substantial evidence that supports the idea of gamification being particularly beneficial to the learner. So, I mean, and I maybe it's because gamification doesn't address the core problem. What outcome do we want to reward? Do we want to reward that our customers can go through the motions, some predefined set of actions, or do we want our customers to be able to use our apps to achieve whatever outcome they need to achieve? Commercially, I'm interested in jobs to be done, because the more jobs our apps help our customers to get done, the more valuable are our apps in the space that we're competing in. And you ask about alternatives. So from my little pond in this game, I'd rather invest in some form of virtual labs or a simulated environment. That way I can provide the users a safe environment where they can do all the mistakes before they go out in the real world, where they can try scenarios that you can perform in our application, but nobody else ever has thought about. So really going creatively into that, work creatively with our platform. So that would be my investment into this.
Okay. So you mentioned mistakes. Let me go a little bit off script here. Do you think that people who are learning something are scared to commit mistakes, and therefore the learning system needs to address that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we all want to be successes in our own right. We want to do the right thing, but to do the right thing, you need to do mistakes, because that's how we learn. That's how we progress as human beings. And if we can use training to do these mistakes, to do these honest mistakes that everyone will do at some point, but we can do this in a safe environment, in a controlled environment. And then when we're out there in our jobs, we can go 110% into the best that we ever possible can achieve and succeed, because we have learned what we shouldn't be doing. That's key in this one for me, actually.
Okay, just to add to that, I think it also depends on how critical that operation is. Like, for example, you don't have a surgeon going in live into an operation. They would probably cut into a cadaver and maybe an onion or a pineapple first before working on a live model. But at the same time, if you wanted to learn swimming, there's no amount of any kind of movements that you do in land that's going to teach you how to learn swimming. You have to get into the water.
Yeah, exactly. You cannot do the theoretical swimming. The same for classroom training. I mean, you can read all the books. Let's say for IDs as us, we can read all the books about ID on how people learn, but doing that in practice is, of course, the game changer. That's where you really will see what works and what doesn't work. And you're perfectly right. It depends on how mission critical your work is and what the consequences are. And the bigger the consequences are, I believe the more need there is to have safe environments too, because we have the technology now. So that would be my message.
Great. You also made a very interesting point earlier on where you said you were competing with everybody else for the attention of the user, marketing and sales and everybody outside as well. So what are some of the challenges that you face as an ID, other than this, even when it comes to the attention, getting the attention of the user and keeping him focused on something that he needs to learn?
Yeah, I mean, there are multiple challenges if we talk about attention. First of all, in these times and days, there are a lot of other things that can grab our attention. A lot of things are designed to grab our attention, both healthy and unhealthy ways. But today our platform is catering to people working at an office and either doing bids or doing the tendering, the public procurement. They have their mobile phones. The mobile phone will ping you, get the Slack messages and everything. So you're really in this field of where attention is spread among so many platforms and in so many devices and so many applications that you kind of need to play in this field. And how do we play in this field? I know that Salesforce with their Trailhead Academy, they do have some Slack integration to present that learning, and that this is addressing this. Okay, our customers, they are on Slack, then let's deliver learning content on Slack to our customers. So you really play the game that your customer or your user or your learner plays, and that's where I also can see a fit for gamification. So that's one issue. That's the attention issue. Another issue is, of course, that when it comes to education and learning, is talking about metrics. What are good metrics for learning? Is it a good metric if we talk about learner enrollment in our LMS? Or how many flows has been played, or what's the underlying course or the underlying reason why we have so many enrollments, or why we have so many plays on a flow that tells the customer how to change their password. So is that a good metric? I'm not sure. And learning has this thing that it takes time before you really can get some real good evidence out of that. Our learning initiative has solved problem X, but probably you have a lot of initiatives that also are part of this variable. So you can, at most, sometimes you can say we contributed to solve problem X with our learning. So there, this attention is one issue. Metrics, a completely different issue that I am actually facing as an ID.
I agree, and that's a common issue even when it comes to information development. And in one of the previous episodes, sales enablement leader, and they were talking about how do they measure the impact of their training, and she used a phrase that said time to value, which means they do the training and then they see, and it's basically to sales, right? And they see how from the time the person has joined the organization to the time that they're able to pitch and make a sale. What is that time duration? That is kind of a very interesting and impactful metric, I thought, because at the end of the day, when after you're teaching something or after you're learning something, I think the most effective measure would be implementation, right? How are you able to apply what you learned? Now, how do you measure that? And these are usually done, it could be done offline, online, wherever, but how do you get that measure and then track it back to the stuff that you are creating?
Yeah, exactly. And I agree on that. And mostly it will end up to be still being a contributing factor, because if we talk about implementation, or at least the way we do implementation, is that you also have customer success managers that are part of this process, and we have our UX team is constantly working on creating a better workflow for our users. So learning becomes a contributing factor into that time to value, definitely. And if you can build a hypothesis that you've been a contributing factor and measure that, some way to measure that is, of course, to say split your learners into trained and untrained, and look at the difference. And if you say that the trained are performing better on some key performance indicators, then you're probably doing a quite good job.
Right. Yeah, that's right. So the next question would be, how have digital adoption platforms changed the way people learn? So you've been using Whatfix from maybe 2-3 years now?
Yeah. 3-4 years. That's 3 years probably. Yeah, digital adoption platforms, huge potential for SaaS companies, especially platforms that are like ours, that are hugely configurable. I always like to paint that picture about tools like Whatfix, digital adoption platforms in general. They are the teacher or the buddy that sits on the right or left of you and points on the screen and says, "Hey, buddy, you need to click there to get to place X or Y or Z," and they are a way to hold your users' hands on a massive scale, because the tool doesn't care if there's one user or thousands of users on the platform playing the same macro on the platform. They will solve the same thing, and if you do that intelligently, then you have this side-by-side buddy. Something that's in a similar vein is how kids these days look on YouTube and Twitch to see others play. Here we have this similar approach that's of course more still contextual but text-based, but this watch and learn and perform the steps, that has a huge impact. And that way I see great potential in tools like Whatfix, definitely.
Great. You had mentioned how Salesforce uses Slack, right? And I thought that was a very interesting point, because many customers implement Whatfix on an application, but with the assumption that the user is already there, right? But what if the user is not there? Then anything that they are trying to show them is not there. So you have to actually go to the place where they are and show them information that they should see. So what are your thoughts on other emerging technologies? What does the future look like for an ID?
Yeah, the future looks bright. As far as I could see, there has never been so many open positions in L&D. So there's huge interest in L&D as a general field, and IDs, of course, too. I believe there's more and more space for different specializations in ID, exactly because of so many emerging technologies. Not everyone must be able to build and code and do virtual reality. We still need those who can deliver in-person lectures or virtual in-class training. So, it's about having diverse teams. We need the content writer. We need the person who can do the strategy. We need the technologist, the developer, the marketer. There's room for everyone. And this is not only because part of the emerging technologies, because this is also because the field itself, it matures every single day, and it becomes in SaaS companies, it becomes more and more part of the end-to-end customer journey. And that's why we need these diverse teams. So in general, I mean, it's a growing field, and as more and more jobs will be replaced by AI and robots, we will need to upskill and reskill the workforce. And the future for an ID in that sense is bright, even though if that artificial intelligence also will be a contributing factor in our field, you will still need some part of human assistance to the AI. That's something that will be really, really interesting to see, this human assisted AI. This is something that I look forward to.
Completely agree, and very well said. And with that, let's move on to the rapid fire round. So quick questions, maybe one word or a phrase.
Nibu.
So happiness to you is?
Seeing people grow.
Awesome. The best compliment you have ever received?
I would say when my kid tells me that I'm the best dad in the whole wide world on a rainy day.
Unbeatable. The most innovative thing that you have implemented?
Does that have to be work related?
No, it doesn't have to be work related.
Okay.
It could be something with your kid as well.
It isn't, but okay, this might sound crazy, but I love to build stuff, even though it's kind of meaningless stuff. Just a quick example, one time I built this USB stick-based car computer for our Peugeot that enabled us to mirror our phone screen. That was before cars came with Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. So my point is meaningless stuff too. So if I encounter a problem, I solve it MacGyver style. So I'm not always thinking of it as a creative or innovative solution, but I let others be the judge of it. But this is me in a nutshell, I guess. So yeah,
Awesome.
Crazy things. I mean, do things that other people would think is meaningless. That's just good for your creativity and doing innovative stuff.
Absolutely. I wanted to say how similar I am with you. You know, I also do a lot of these meaningless things. I do a lot of fabrication, this physical work, right? So welding stuff together and getting stuff and always get burnt too. So I completely agree with you. And I think it really kind of, gets you to that intersection of disciplines. And that's where innovation really happens. When you're doing something totally different, you get an idea.
Exactly.
Okay, and you try to apply that somewhere else.
Exactly. And that actually perfectly ties a knot to something that we've talked about earlier, is that when you do this crazy stuff, I put that into quotes now, or meaningless stuff, then you will do mistakes because you're not, even though I have a background in as a sailor, I'm not a good welder, and I'm not a perfectly good coder because I have not studied coding and IT development. So I do mistakes, but I learn from those mistakes, and they give me some perspective, and that perspective I take with me in my everyday work life and everyday life and in general. So it's a good point from you, Nibu, too.
Excellent. This is awesome, Lars. Really enjoyed talking with you. And if people wanted to connect with you, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, sure. Hit me on LinkedIn. I guess that's the best place to catch me. I mean, I do have Twitter accounts, of course, and Instagram accounts, but I'm mostly available on LinkedIn. So search me up and connect with me.
Sure, that's awesome. We'll make sure that your handle is mentioned in the notes of the podcast.
Perfect.
So once again, thank you so much, Lars, for taking the time to talk to us, and I really enjoyed talking with you. And wish the podcast all the very best, and you too.
Yeah, sure, Nibu, man. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. It's always great talking about instructional design, career paths, where are we now and where are we going. So great journey we've been on, great journey that Whatfix is on. So happy to be a part of this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah.